we try to talk to different entrepreneurs and investors and founders and others who are involved in the stages of both starting and building a business. And one of the main themes that we always try to look at is the journey that people go through to achieve this. Many early and aspiring entrepreneurs are under the impression that it's a straight path from, say, a college degree or the starting of a business to whatever success looks like, whatever exit looks like. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. The reality is that we all follow a different journey, a different path. And my guest today is no exception to that rule in terms of the very interesting start and where she is now in that journey. And who knows what tomorrow may bring. We'll talk a bit about all of these things today on Forge Fireside. I just want to also mention that that Forge is a unit of the University of Arizona's Research, Innovation, and Impact. And we are focused on inspiring entrepreneurial mindset in all students, in supporting the ecosystem in all the communities where the university operates, and in assisting the scale and launch of promising startups. All right, we will also be using the webinar platform today, so it'll be Q&A. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature. We'll be reserving chat largely for information, links, and other things for attendees. So please use Q&A for any questions. All right, I'm going to invite Linette to the stage, to the virtual stage here with me. And good morning, Linette. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And sorry for the technical difficulties in getting you on. It's obviously January, starting a new year, everything happening all at once. And technology's also been a bit chaotic these days.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we're making it work.
So we tend to follow a little bit of a format in Fireside only because we have a wide variety of attendees. We have very experienced entrepreneurs and investors, and we also often have students, whether high school or college. And so I like to try to start with sort of, let's go back to the beginning, if you will, and then walk our way forward. So let's talk about your education experience. Where did you go? What did you study?
Yeah, so I came to the U of A, and I graduated from Eller with my marketing degree. That's where I met my partner, Kyle. So he got his finance degree from Eller as well. Yeah, and then that's kind of the education portion of it. Everything else has been kind of self-taught.
So how important was beer at the time that you went through your education?
I mean, it's always important. Yeah, I mean, we couldn't afford good beer at that time. So Kyle actually used to homebrew during college. So it was a way for us to test some of the beers that we would later on make. But yeah, it's always been a part of our lives. So.
And, I don't know roughly what time this was, but the state of beer in Tucson has obviously been going through a bit of a renaissance in the last probably 5 to 10 years. What was it like at that time when you were at Eller?
Yeah, it was very different. I think there was maybe 3 breweries total here when we were looking to start. And so that's what it was during college. But Kyle's from the Northwest, and so he kind of introduced me to all the craft beer styles because I, was a lager macro drinker when I would drink beer. So he kind of introduced me to all of that. We would travel different places and try the different beers, and we saw so many other cities that were far ahead of Tucson at that time. Had, the neighborhood pub that had craft beer with a lot of different flavors and styles. And we just didn't really have that here during college or even after we graduated. Moved back to the Northwest for a little bit just to get some experience. And then when we came back, it was still like 3 or 4 breweries at that time. So we really saw the need for something else, something different here. So that's where we stepped in.
Well, funny story. I moved to Tucson in '94, and I was also into home brewing. And I remember the very first kit that I did was a Pacific Northwest ale. Mildly hoppy, but for me at the time that was really hoppy. Probably wouldn't pass my test these days, but back then it was really great to have your own beer. So you moved to Seattle. What did that experience teach you? For example, thinking about locations or competition and opportunities.
Yeah, so Kyle worked at a brewery and I worked at a hotel in downtown Seattle, just kind of like hospitality, customer service style. But what we would do is we would go to the different breweries every chance we got. So it was a lot like researching, what we thought well, places that were busier, places that weren't so busy. And one of the things we really, really loved was the neighborhood kind of places where it seemed like everybody that lived or worked nearby went there, and it was kind of a community space where, yes, you're drinking beer, but it's also a place to like talk about your day with your friends and catch up and that sort of thing. And so that was kind of our goal when we went back. We wanted something in like an area that was going to have that sort of vibe. So that was the big thing.
Okay.
While we were in Seattle.
And so let's see, you had the experience of Tucson of only seeing a very small number of breweries here. You'd gone to Seattle, seen a very different environment for brewing. You'd noticed, kind of this community component to the breweries, the brew pubs, and the ways that they engaged. So was that about when you hatched this idea of getting back to Tucson and finding the right spot for a brewery?
That's when it became more of a reality. I think that we were kind of like, oh, we can do this. Because we when we graduated, it was 2009. So the crash had just happened and it was really, really hard to get jobs at that time, which in retrospect is a blessing in disguise because we were like, now what? Now we have these 4-year degrees, like we could keep going to school and get, our master's, or let's just do it. We're both just ready to kind of start. But no one was hiring. So we were like, now what? So it was our plan when we went there, like, let's go kind of research, see what it's like in a place that has a lot of breweries, that has more to offer. And so it was kind of our goal to do a bunch of market research. And when we got out there, we're like, we can do this because there's nothing like this in Tucson. The few breweries that were here were very brew pub type breweries. And that wasn't really our desire. We didn't want a kitchen. Food is hard. I think you have a whole food series, and I'm sure you'll hear about those pain points. And we noticed those, just like, that's not really the road we want to go. So we were kind of trying to figure out, is doing a brewery without food a viable option? So that's kind of where Seattle kind of opened our eyes, and we were like, you know what, like, they're doing it, why wouldn't it work in Tucson? So that's what happened there.
Nice. I'm going to make a quick aside to the college students out there, which is Don't assign too much importance to the particular degree that you're going to get. The path you take, the things you do, the jobs you have. I mean, you were finance, right?
Marketing, finance.
Marketing and finance. Sorry, it's breaking up a little bit on your end, so I just wanted to carry that forward. So yes, you get to use especially the marketing clearly, and I will say that in the realm of breweries locally and nationally, Pueblo Vida's marketing game is absolutely A plus.
Thank you.
But I do think that too often I hear college students getting so fixated over, I got to get this degree in this discipline, and also, let's face it, sometimes worrying a little bit about grades, and how many years post, and how important is that? Not terribly, right? It's what you make of it. It's the experience that you build. So sorry.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think also your desire to continue learning, just like Googling. So your degree, while it is important and you do learn some very good skills, I think overall the type of degree you're gonna get is, it's fine. Whatever it is, you're good.
That's right. It's what you're. I think it's a lot of the time it's about and we'll get to this in a moment, but we talk a lot about entrepreneurial mindset, and one of the reasons that we do is because we really emphasize this idea of critical thinking and problem solving, and how that factors in so much more than the particular degree that you have. But let's go back to, okay, you're now back in Tucson. You're scouting for locations. You find this spot downtown, and then there's a little money challenge, I would assume.
Yes, there's always money challenge, unfortunately. But yeah, that was kind of one of the biggest hurdles. We were two young kids. We didn't have a very extensive resume. We had been in college. We had worked a little bit outside of college, but we were still only about 2 years out of college. And so for banks, that's, there's some red flags there. Like you're a kid, you don't know what you're doing. And so I really had to learn how to talk to a banker and, tell them like why we really, really believe this was a thing that was going to work. And again, at that time, breweries were still a very new thing here. There's a few of us that kind of opened up around the same time. So I think that helped, that there was like, okay, like, the city kind of got behind, this is a thing that is happening. But it was hard. And so, and we were lucky, and we did have some family that was willing to invest a little bit. But we were also didn't want to do a whole investor call, because we've always believed that we wanted to be, owners, managers. So that was a choice too. But yeah, asking for money is what is a big hurdle at the beginning that just have to kind of face and keep pushing forward, even though you're going to get a few no's, at least a few.
Yeah, we like to tell our aspiring entrepreneurs, you're going to get a lot of no's, probably 99 for every one yes you get. But
that is true.
I mean, so yes, they were friends and family, but how did you convince them? What was it about the market opportunity? Was it, what was the thing that swayed them besides your obviously charming personalities?
We did write a business plan, and it was a very we kind of tried to cover all our bases, answer all the questions that people had. And then, I think it was like the fact that, they had also been to Seattle and to Portland and saw the differences in the markets. So we were excited to get in a place where we felt was still pretty ground floor as far as breweries go. And the downtown was kind of coming together at that time too. So we were excited about that. Yeah, so I think that helped.
the streetcar project was
Underway. It
underway,
wasn't done yet. Yeah, it
but
was almost
that
done when we were opening.
but that was a big promise, right? That would be this transformational thing for you, which so I look at it. I think this is maybe the note to aspiring food and beverage entrepreneurs is location, obviously, the timing, thinking about the financing, your comment about being owner managers. We often counsel entrepreneurs to wait as long as humanly possible to raise outside capital, as much as you can bootstrap it, do. And I think also the opportunity was there, where there was relatively low competition. Thus it was a great opportunity to move in at a time where this was a growing interest. Is all of that fairly accurate?
Yes, I agree with all of that.
So, okay, found a spot, funding secured. Sorry, I had to make that joke. And now you're building out your team. What's been your philosophy in hiring your staff?
Yeah, that's always a puzzle piece that you continue to have to play with. But at the beginning, I think we still are, even today, more focused on the person's attitude and energy that they bring versus how much do you know about beer, especially at the very beginning, because we were teaching people what we were doing. What we were doing wasn't available here. So we were, having to do a lot of the education. So to us, when we were looking at somebody that was going to come on board, it was more about like, how interested are you in it? How willing are you to learn? Our customer service, that sort of thing. So, and that still continues to be the case today. Sometimes we have younger staff because of the job role, and so they're still learning about craft beer and different styles and things like that. So,
Okay, your dog agrees.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's part of the team. And then thinking about how you keep those people, right? So, building a business is both recruiting the right people with the right aptitude and attitude, and then it's also keeping those people in place. And of course, we had this very special situation with the pandemic and what that meant for, especially for places that had to close down. How did you adapt? Obviously you didn't compromise on your hiring philosophy, but how did you go about addressing the retention question?
Yeah, I think for us, it's always just important to continue to meet people where they are, how much they're willing to grow with us. And just be open. Communication has been the biggest thing. Honest communication during the pandemic is really hard because there were so many unknowns, and just having to tell staff, like, we don't know, like, we are trying our best and we are going to continue to do this thing because it's the thing we love. And so, if you want to stay on with us, we would, you're open for that. But yeah, continuing, just being open and honest. And overall, pandemic aside, I think our philosophy for keeping people on is offering them ways to grow, whether it's with us or outside of us. There's people, that grow out of these roles, and we're still a very small company. So sometimes it's, like we don't have of the upper management thing, but helping them create the skills that they need for the next place that they're going to go has been good. And it's fun to keep up with people and see where they end up. So
Many parts, as I've seen.
Yes.
A number of pretty notable breweries have moved toward a sort of employee owner model. Is that something that you've contemplated? Is it still just too early days, too small? What's your philosophy on that?
I think it is a little too early days, too small for us. It's definitely something I've seen and I think could work, especially as us owner managers start getting a little older. When you're a small business, there is an exit strategy that you eventually have to come to. And that is a good one, I think, and it has worked for a lot of breweries. I don't know what entails. I hope to still be doing this for quite a few more years. So I don't know if we're there yet, but I do think it's a pretty interesting new thing that has kind of come about, where graduating, I don't think I would have ever thought that that's a possibility going to work for a big company. So
Yeah, I think about a lot of the students graduating today, and many of them are they're aspirational. They want to own a stake of the thing that they're doing, and so there's this interesting dividing line that has emerged where you still have the working world and you're an employee, and you
mhm.
have this entrepreneurial world and you're also an owner, or you have a stake in it. And so we try in doing the entrepreneurial mindset to help the students think about themselves as owners, even if that's not actually the case, because that will make a better employee than the one who just comes in and says, okay, tell me what to do.
Yes, that's true. Other type of employees a lot better. So yes.
So what does being entrepreneurial or being an entrepreneur mean to you?
Think the biggest thing I kind of taken away from this experience is there's never, you can't ever say no. Like you have to, wake up and figure out a solution for that problem. You can't just set it aside and walk away. So I think learning and constantly like, problem solving and just continuing on and looking forward has been like the biggest thing that I think is that entrepreneurial, that if you decide to do this thing that you're passionate about, you should know that you have, like, there's no failure. You have to continue. Sorry if
But
that was a little convoluted.
well, no, it's fine. I mean, I think, and unfortunately, it was cutting a little bit on you. So, but I think part of it is that that interest in trying to solve the problem, and not to just take no for an answer, but think about are there other ways to solve this problem that maybe aren't obvious, that do require some creative thinking. How would you advise aspiring entrepreneurs, especially if they want to go into the food and beverage industry?
I think the biggest thing is understand your why and be passionate about the thing you're doing. Be excited about it. Have a ton of interest in it, what you're going to be doing, because there's so much that kind of pulls you away that you can kind of get sidetracked with. um there's you're wearing every hat, and so having a continuing knowledge of like why you're doing it, and the fact that you continue to be excited about new things that are happening in that industry, or I think that's like the main thing. And if there's a bit of you that isn't very excited, then it might not work out for you.
I like that. Understand your why. I think that is so critical, because too often you hear people saying, "Well, it's just a job," and I think to an entrepreneur, that's no, not interested. Don't want that.
Yeah, and it's not just a job. I mean, at least for me, it's whole life. And Kyle and I have always said, we're going to be doing this for the rest of our lives, is our hope. So you can't treat it as just a job. It becomes a lot more than that. So
Yeah. So you said for the rest of your lives. I mean, that's a long time,
that's a long time.
Linette. So what does the future hold for you? What use your crystal ball or whatever and tell me what do you see the future holding?
Yeah. So I think our goals would be to create a few more of these neighborhood type places that we can help kind of create that environment that we first fell in love with. Our goal has never been to be a huge brewery, a regional, like I want to every Safeway kind of thing. So I think continuing to stay on that track where we started, and then maybe just like having another one and maybe moving on to another city if that's a thing. I don't know if it will be, but I love Tucson, so I don't see myself ever moving out of here. But yeah, maybe, a few more neighborhood areas around town and going from there. So we'll see.
Pueblo.
Yay.
Right above Borderlands, no less. And there are a few casualties on here too. There's public stickers hiding
Oh,
back there.
yeah.
I think that is the question. I mean, we have seen some, whether it's consolidation or just, loss of some breweries. Do you think it's that were we oversaturated? Did too many people all have the same idea move forward? Was it a reflection of quality, changing tastes? Like what's your take on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I ask myself that sometimes, and right now we're seeing it a lot. And I think it's post-pandemic stuff where if, you didn't figure out like efficiencies and I mean rents and things like that, like all of that affected so much. And so I think that right now it's kind of an effect of that. Before that, like sometimes, it's like quality or people are just ready to move on and do something else. I don't know. That's a good question. I think it's
Yeah.
different for each place. So
So this is a dangerous question to ask, but we have seen a hazy craze in the brewing world. Is that sustainable? Are we going to have like a lager whiplash and everybody's going to switch over to that? I know certain people like Ty at Caps and Corks would love to see a lager and pills craze, but
Renaissance.
what do you think?
I do think we see, ebbs and flows of different beer styles. And for so long, there wasn't like a brand new beer style like the hazy IPA that came out of New England. So I think that's why it took over so much. And I think it will continue. I mean, there's still a place for the West Coast IPA and other types of IPAs. So I think it will stay on. I think that there is a constant need for, the different styles and having kind of a diverse board, which we try to do, even though we are known for the hazy IPA a lot more. And I think that's mostly because we were, like the first ones to do it here in town. But I think there's always ebbs and flows with beer. And until something's like completely brand new, kind of like the hazy IPA is, I don't think there will be a huge spike of anything else. I think things will just continue to,
Yeah.
exciting. And hops is one thing that's always really exciting and continues to innovate in our industry. So that's always fun to play with and see what growers and are coming up with. So
And I want to get into the grower question too. I'll just remind our audience that if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. or raise your hand, but preferably use the Q&A to post your questions, and we'll get some links put in the chat for Pueblo Vida, and for because you guys have a very active calendar of events. I think that's one of the things that maybe speaks to your community building experience, and how you have to have the events to have community, right? They sort of go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's always, from day one was one of the things I really tried to do. We've done Pints and Poses, which is our yoga class every Sunday. And we've done that basically since the very, very beginning. I think we started at like month 2. And it was my way to reach out into the community and kind of help promote teachers. And then they in turn help promote us. And it's just kind of builds on that. And then we always have a bunch of different events. We have Pie every March 14th, which is a really fun one. So yeah, there's a ton all the time, and they're always on our events on our website. So yeah.
And you often will also, I know you're very bike friendly, bike centric, whether you have promotions for people who ride in, you got a bike rack right in front, people often bring their bikes in and store them inside. I think Landon rides his bike every single day, right? Your head brewer. So is that another way to try to just kind of encourage the community and the local people to come and visit?
Yeah, we have a ton of people that, Tucson's just bike friendly and a lot of outdoor enthusiasts. So we've always tried to help create space for that. And yeah, by allowing people to bring their bikes in, I think that makes them feel really safe when they have bikes that they don't want to leave outside. During the summertime, we do bike rides that are kind of Landon actually leads those, our head brewer. And we, pick a few spots around town and roll through them, and he kind of leads those on. And it's just a lot of fun. Again, to like get to know our customers and get to do something even outside of the brewery with them. So yeah, we've tried to help promote that.
And I like to say that the bicycling is what kind of lets me drink the beer. So there's a fair trade there.
Yes.
You guys have had a really great relationship, like with, is it BKW up in Marana? So is that a very intentional thing for you to try to source as locally as you can?
Yes. So we're very lucky that they do this Sonoran white wheat. I could be a little bit wrong on this, but I think they started it because Dawn at Barrio Bread kind of started that whole relationship. I don't know which if Dawn asked or if they started it.
I think so.
But we found them through that, and we were like, like we use a lot of wheat in a lot of our beers, so let's try this. And they provide a really great product. We've been very happy with them. We've had that relationship for several years now, and it's great for us to be able to source something so close to home. I mean, they're just a few miles from the brewery, and be able to use that. There's other, hops are something that we just can't source that close, but we get them from Yakima, and it's still US. Some do come from a little bit farther, but yeah, we try to keep our footprint a little bit smaller if we can. So
sure. Yeah, so one of the reasons I'm asking is because we have a lot of focus on Tucson, city of gastronomy, right? I mean, we have this amazing epicenter for our culinary world and all of these flavors, and I don't know that people always necessarily think of beer and brewing in the same way, but the reality, it absolutely is. There is as you were saying before, New England IPA, West Coast IPA, right? These are things that come from regions. And is there a Tucson style, do you think? Is that something that, or Southern Arizona? If we could throw Weedy and down in Tombstone into this topic, right? Is there such a thing? Or is that too hard to create that kind of distinction?
I think that's pretty hard to create. Yeah, I think, yeah, like the West Coast and the New England I was talking about, there's like a really big regions and a lot of people doing it, and doing it kind of in that same way. And I mean, I think there is a lot of people that use local ingredients. There's also places in Phoenix too that provide other grains and stuff. So I think that if anything, that maybe something like that would be considered a Tucson
Mhm.
type beer. Uh, but it's hard to narrow down to a style, because even with the Sonoran white wheat, I mean, we use it in our IPA just as much as we use it in our hef. So, it doesn't become a style. It's just more of a regional
Right.
ingredient that we're all using.
Now, I would say you do have one somewhat local in that, and I think it's fantastic that you don't only make hazy IPAs. You also have a porter and a stout, and these others, and you've got local roasted coffee and tea. You also have, right? You have beers made with both, done by local companies, which is, does create a certain amount of regional or local identity. How did those come about? Was that a conscious thing on your part to say, we really need to get these other folks involved and be able to, represent them and what they're doing? How did that come to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we build those friendships, like we get to know so many people from doing what we do. But yeah, we love the different products that we get to taste, and our mindset is always, how does this work with beer? And no matter what that is. And so coffee and tea are two things that work really well. And so we've been able to, build that relationship with Curtis at Presta, and we work with him too, of whether, whole bean or brew. And he's been really good at like letting us play on and playing with us basically to create the different beers. And so our order up, which is a stout, and a few other stouts we've done with him, have worked really well, because he lets us choose the coffee. We get to taste it from the very beginning. And so building that relationship really helps. And same thing with Maya. We went to their facility, and they have hundreds and maybe thousands of teas. I don't know, but it's pretty cool that both of them are doing such great things here in Tucson. And being able to work with like people that are really passionate about their specific product, and we get to learn from each other. And it's just fun, I guess. At the end of the day, we're just having fun.
But it's also, I mean, it's like local business helping other local business, which is, I think we talk a lot about, well, why here? There's so much attention that's paid to some of the larger, I don't know, startup ecosystems, and people say, well, but Tucson, it's this sleepy little town. And yet, I think we punch well above our weight, and especially when it comes to food and beverage, and the fact that I will confess a great bias on my part, which is that when I meet people from outside of Arizona and they say, Arizona, how's the brewing scene? I say, well, I can't speak for Phoenix, but in Tucson, it's really good. So
I appreciate that. There are good breweries in Phoenix too, though.
Absolutely, there are one or two. All right, there. I gave away my bias, but you'll notice there's not a whole lot of Phoenix breweries on my water bottle. We got a question in the chat. I'll go ahead and read it. And you certainly know that the person asking it, because he's just up on 4th Avenue. But he wants to know about your success and, how you kind of break it down between the luck, the hard work, and, some combination of the two, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it is a little bit of both. I think there's always a little bit of luck that plays into, the things you're doing. Like you were saying earlier, is very important, and deciding when to do one thing or over another. But overall, I guess it's hard work. You just have to continue getting up in the morning and deciding you're going to do the best you can, and maybe a little bit better than you did yesterday. And so I think that, if anything, is the secret.
Yeah. Well, even in your backstory and kind of how Pueblo Vida came to be, your timing, like the 2008 implosion in real estate, played a pretty substantial role in both changing kind of the dynamics of what was available, and also the timing of when you chose to start, and coinciding with a handful of other breweries and the banks, which I have no doubt, had you asked the question, even a year earlier, they probably would have said, that doesn't sound like a business that we would get behind. But because there was, you had this, I think that just worked in your favor. I will say that we spend a lot of time too talking with our aspiring entrepreneurs about looking at alternate funding sources, because banks are very focused in the things that they're looking for and often need collateral. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs who simply don't have collateral.
Right.
Or that family and friends that can help them out. And, so we work with groups like Community Investment Corporation, who have, non-collateralized and sometimes zero interest loans for aspiring entrepreneurs, especially BIPOC. And so I'm putting that plug in for Danny and the team at Community Investment Corporation, because they do awesome work for
Yeah,
those.
that sounds awesome. Yeah.
We have a group of about 19 people sitting in the hub, which would be behind me. And a question came from the audience: what are the unique labor challenges for your business, and is there a pipeline?
Oh, that's a good question. So we kind of run two sides of a business. There's, the side that you guys all get to see, which is the servers and us, providing beer. But there's also what, in kitchens is usually referred to as back of house. For us, it's like the manufacturing of the beer. So that includes, creating the beer, moving the beer, packaging it, delivering it to other restaurants, that sort of thing. And so it becomes very different things that we're looking for when we're hiring. The back of house does require a little bit more skilled labor, where we're looking for, do you understand, the safety aspects of working in like a brew warehouse type environment. And you're not seeing a lot of people when you're working back there. It's just, the people working with. And then when we're looking for servers, you're looking for someone that's like very good with being with a lot of people all the time and having to be that front facing and understanding how to explain the aspects of beer. So two different things that we're hiring for. Overall, I think, like I said earlier, we look at attitudes first and foremost, that whole energy that they're bringing and excitement for craft beer and Pueblo Vida, and basing it off of that, and then looking at like how much are we going to be having to educate, or do they already know, and just educating them on Pueblo Vida in general. So
yeah,
hopefully that answered.
Well, the other question was about a pipeline, and I think that's probably, at the scale that you're at, at least in terms of front of house, you have a relatively stable crew that are there, so stable that you put them on the label of one of your recent beers, which
Good.
which I love. It's absolutely one of my favorite labels that you guys have ever done. It speaks to kind of how you're really a family in many senses. The Vita bunch being the beer that I'm referring to, and I go in there and I see pretty much the same faces all the time. So a pipeline would probably be more important if you either had a giant staff or you had a significant amount of turnover or changeover, but that isn't really your situation, right?
Yeah, we still operate on a very small crew. Even for the amount of beer that we're producing, it's still relatively small, and we have had really low turnover throughout the entire time that we've been open. So that has been really great for us. But yeah, so I don't know if I would say that there is a pipeline. Landon owned his own brewery back in South Dakota. That was a really great find for us, as far like, here is this person that already knows how this works, and that was great. And so he, our head brewer, and he manages all of the brewing aspect. So but yeah, not exactly a pipeline. I mean, the brewing industry in general is still pretty small, so that you do end up knowing a lot of, who's brewing where and who runs what. But and then Tucson too, because it's small here. But
There we are.
yeah.
Another question from the audience: what if Pueblo Vida is tracking the trend on non-alcoholic beers, and is that something you may be doing? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer.
Yes, we have been for a while, and now it's really kind of, especially in January, has been a big hot topic. But we have for a while. We've actually, since last year in January, was the first time we released Vita Spritz, which is now available in cans, and we have it available year round, not just in January. But it is our non-alcoholic. We don't call it a beer because it's too spritzy to be a beer. It's a hoppy seltzer water thing. But yes, it's completely non-alcoholic. It's actually quite a different process of brewing it, coming from the beer world and not from, a water standpoint. So it was a fun challenge to try to put that together and put it in cans. So for over a year now, we've been Vita Spritz. It's doing really well. We also have it around because inevitably we have a lot of meetings that are over beers, and nights when we're just like, we need some other than the alcohol right now. So it's been great to have. We still use hops and malts in it just like a beer. So it isn't gluten-free, which is the question I do get a lot. But it does have a lot of, when you're, looking for something bubbly that doesn't have alcohol. So we're really happy with it. It's called Vita Spritz. We've done a couple versions of it. We kind of switch the hops around every time we make it. But yeah. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we have been tracking it. We are a part of it. And that's the fun thing too of being an entrepreneur. You kind of get to choose those fun projects. You kind of have your eye on what is happening in the industry. Is it worth, are you excited about pursuing that one thing and jumping on those waves? So that one's one we're really excited about and have been playing around with for a little while now, and hopefully it'll stick around because we really like it. So
yeah, I know when it was introduced, our youngest son turned 21 in October, and so prior that was like, so now he just, all he wants are the hazy IPAs, but before
He
at
could
least there
join
was
you and have that. Yeah.
that's right. You mentioned another really important topic, which is water. And not that Pueblo Vida is single-handedly responsible for water in the state of Arizona or Tucson, but are there things that you have done to try to reduce your imprint and your usage or reclamation or other things?
Yeah, something that we try to keep our eye on. We do live in a desert. It is a resource that we need to watch. And so a few years ago, I think it was like 3 or 4 years now, the U of A actually just do a sustainability study about, like footprint and just like we could track and reduce the usage of certain things, and water was a big one. And we've implemented a lot of different things that help, as small as like switching, a faucet so that, it doesn't pour as fast. Um, but then other things of like how to reuse water in certain stages of the brewing. So it is something that is on our mind. We know that as a brewery, we use a lot of water. That is something that is kind of unavoidable. But we try to use less than we need to, I guess, or as little as we can.
To be as responsible as you realistically can, but I mean, your product
Exactly.
literally involves water, so there's
Yeah,
just
and lots. Yeah.
well, I kind of want to do a quick recap here, because I think, not everybody is going to be an entrepreneur in food and beverage, clearly, but I think your story is one that any entrepreneur can learn from, which is thinking about, number one, not being wrapped up in, your particular educational path, but rather using that as a platform to lead you down a certain path. Thinking about your location and how important that can be. Obviously, if you have a physical presence, it's absolutely critical. And I will say, your presence downtown Tucson is absolutely central to our existence, and to, I think, a lot of what goes on downtown, because it is an anchor for what happens there. For an entrepreneur thinking about competition and the presence of alternatives, and seeing the opportunities where they exist. The market, and is this a stable market? I mean, the reality is, if somehow the world of beer had gone toward everybody just wants macro and as cheap as possible, it would make this area really difficult to succeed in. But I think people are willing. Now, that said, I also often appreciate the fact that I can come in to Pueblo Vida and it's still very reasonable, the price of that, pint or half pint of beer, and that's obviously a challenge for you as a business owner, is to maintain the balance between, a healthy bottom line and margin versus the, what customers are willing to pay and their alternatives. So I think that's a really key lesson. Team is the thing we probably preach the loudest to everybody, because it's building that successful team that's going to really support you. I loved your comment about how, while you see doing this forever, you do have to recognize that at some point there are others who want to have a stake in what you're doing and take over. And so how do you help them in that, and encourage them to think entrepreneurially themselves? Make sure that you're in touch with your why, is, I think, a really key takeaway here. Don't be doing it because it's a job. Do it because it's something that really resonates with you and gives you that sense of solving a problem. And who knows what the future holds, right, Linette?
Who knows?
So I'm going to put in a quick plug because I got my marketing communications in my ear saying, "Hey, everybody! Just a reminder: next Thursday, Forge event. There's a link there, but it is innovative ways to fund your food business. So really continuing this very theme for all of you, and that will be next Thursday at Forge. So please register for that, and hope to see you all downtown." And with that, Linette, I wish to thank you very much for your time and talking with us today and sharing your personal entrepreneur journey with all of us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Have a wonderful day, and I'm sure I'll see you soon. All right. Thanks, Linette. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.